So this is the Geological Field Mapping with ArcGIS Pro. And what we're going to mainly concentrate on is the field side of things. So it'll be the Discover Mobile, but also integrating with ArcGIS Pro. Just a caveat, there may be some people who are also ArcGIS Pro and MapInfo Pro users. So the exact same principles work across both platforms. So the Discover Mobile works on both of those. The forms in both of the platforms are pretty much the same. So you'll get the idea of what to do. So it's not too intimidating. A little bit about myself. I won't go too much on about it, but I graduated as a geologist, worked for a mineral sands company. And yeah, after that, did that for probably about 8 years or so. And then have worked for geological exploration software companies after that. And I've been with the Datamine and affiliated companies for over 15 years. Okay, so what we're going to talk about here is the mining life cycle and exploration. So what you can see here is the highlighted section is primarily what we are involved with, or I am involved with, and that's the exploration components of software. So what that involves is regional prospectivity, exploration lease assessment, prospect evaluation, and target drilling. So we've tried to create a suite of tools which will assist the geologist or the users in that space. And also within Datamine, we do go through the other phases of the learn and the mine. So, getting to your resource estimation and also your mining. So we do have those components as well. Okay, so field mapping. Pretty much field mapping, it's a continual cost benefit analysis. So what I mean by that is when you're out in the field, you're always deciding, should I go over to that outcrop? Is it hard to access? Can I be bothered? So what we've tried to do with Discover Mobile and ArcGIS Pro, all the tools in there that we've got, is reduce the barriers for collection. So essentially the user has the entire field kit in their hands. That's not to say that you can't use paper, you can't use your compass and all that, but we've got the tools in there if you want to use them. So exploration's primarily focused on valid data collection. So that's where a lot of the data is collected for that first phase of the mining cycle. And Discover Mobile assists in this process. So that's what we've tried to do. So what we've decided is everyone pretty much has a mobile phone. There's not too many people who don't. Put Discover Mobile on that or a tablet. It's easy to install. There's no device configuration. There's no licensing with it. So it's pretty easy for the end user to get it up and going. So if you're not familiar with what Discover Mobile is, I'll just quickly go over it. It's a mobile app. Enables you to take all your GIS data out into the field. So you can collect, you can modify, you can analyze. It's seamlessly integrated with both the ArcGIS Pro and MapInfo Pro GIS platforms. So there's not a separate app for either one of those. They both use the same. So it's free to download for anyone. Works offline. So it's been built primarily around this premise that our user base works in remote areas and can be on and offline. So you don't need to have that online internet connection. You can, but you don't have to. We consider it fairly easy to use, and it's been designed from the ground up by the exploration geologist. If you did want to download it, yep, so here it is. You need to search for Datamine Discover Mobile. If you just search for Discover Mobile, it's some financial app, so don't download that one. But Datamine Discover Mobile, and it's natively built for both the Google Android and the Apple iOS systems. So it's been around for about 5 years or so. So it's getting relatively mature. All right, overview of Discover Mobile. It's a dedicated geological mapping tool. You can see your drill hole projects out in it. It's got structural analysis and collection tools. So you can see some of the images over to the right here. Like I said, built for offline use. There's no central administration required by a database administrator, so it's fairly easy to set up. So we also have an outcrop mapping tool, which I'll go over shortly. Especially for exploration geologists, they usually want to have higher precision GPS capture. So you can actually connect to external Bluetooth receivers to give you that stability and higher confidence level. And what we're trying to do is get the notepads, the cameras, the compasses, all out of there, and you can just use your mobile phone because it's pretty much got all that stuff on there. All right. How do you access Discover Mobile in ArcGIS Pro? There's just a tab called Mobile. So once you've installed Discover, and on it, there's a few primary tools. There's the Mobile Manager. You can see up on the top bar there. That is where you create, delete, modify, update source, and transfer mobile projects. There's a table validation. So what this does is you can just send all your data out there, but if you want to have drop-down lists, you want to cap values, etc., that's where you can set the table validation. And you'll also need to set up structural layers, which I'll go over. There's a legend editor, and in the map info one, that's called a pick list editor, or pick list manager. So in ArcGIS Pro, it's the legend editor. Does the same thing, creates these drop-down lists and validation lists and all that sort of thing. And finally, there's an suite of outcrop tools there, which I'll go over a little bit later, but that's how you set up an outcrop project. Okay, so in order to get data out into the field, what you need to do in ArcGIS Pro is you need to set up a mobile project. So what the mobile project does is you subset data from your data source. You might say, why can't we just use the data source? Well, quite often this data, the source data, is in a read-only format, might be a database where you need permissions. So you can't always directly modify source data. So you can bring the data out, but you can, if you do have the permissions, update it back. So a mobile project's generated from a Discover desktop license. So before you might have mentioned, I said it was free. It's free to download from the app stores, but you need to have the Discover license in order to manage and create the projects. But you can have as many of the Discover mobiles installed out in the field for your field crews. Validation rules, they're set up on the desktop, so there's no fiddling around out in the field. You do everything in the office and then send it all out to the mobile device. The project can be used by a single user or an entire field crew. And the projects that can be transferred by cloud, so all your OneDrives and all that sort of stuff, or Google Drives, iCloud, or they can be directly transferred via Wi-Fi sync. This is the typical workflow of a mobile project. So over to the left, you can see the database there. That might be ArcGIS Online, could just be any sort of spatial database. Goes onto your desktop, and that's where ArcGIS Pro or MapInfo Pro live. Then you create a project, which is this middle database, and then you synchronize out to your field devices, and then you go back. So that's a typical sort of workflow of a mobile project. Okay, I'll show you how to transfer a project in a sec. But essentially, after setting up your mobile project, you know, the ArcGIS or MapInfo there, yeah, there's several ways you can go back and forth. We support both Android and iOS devices, so your phones and tablets or your iPhones and your iPads. Essentially, if you've got, probably the main one is if you've got like a really old Android, might be 10 years old, you might struggle to use it, but essentially if it's any device within the last 5 or so years, you should have no worries of it going on. Like I said, transfer methods, direct Wi-Fi transfer. You can do physical laptop to mobile transfer. That's probably mainly for Android devices, or the cloud transfer. And like I said, you can transfer to one or several devices. Okay, so what I'll do is to run a short video, excuse me, and it shows you how to transfer a project from the desktop to the mobile device. So we've already set up the project. That can be another webinar if you want, setting up projects, but I'll just show you the transfer process. And I can just talk while this is going on. So you've got 2 options, transfer file or Wi-Fi sync. So I've clicked the checkout button. Couple of parameters here. You can make some comments. Down the bottom there, you can see if you want to have previous audio or photos going in or out to the project, just so they can bulk up the size of the project. So depending on the size of the project, it's a pretty relatively quick process. You find your in this case an iPhone. I'm Wi-Fi syncing. If you have any problems, you can put in the IP of the device there. There's always a bit of a fallback. Select your device. See the projects that are on there. And essentially just sync it across. And now this is showing you the project going on the device. This is on your iPhone. You can see it transferring across. That's been synced. Okay, just a few other little things to click to check it out. And then that comes back up again because you can resync onto multiple devices if you want to. Now we're going to send it back. So on the desktop, I've clicked check in. I've connected back. Now you can see it's going from the mobile device to the desktop. That's all checked back in. That's pretty much the process of checking in and checking out a project. You can do it via your cloud drives, but that's the Wi-Fi sync component. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show just a little quick video on the mobile device interface. So what this is, it's showing you the interface of this is on an iOS device, so this is an iPad, so you can see the screen's a little bit expanded. You got a familiar sort of look there. You got all your layers over to the left. The main thing you need to do is tap and select a layer, and that's sort of the action, how you do something. So say I click on that geochem points, I want to zoom to something. I click on that little magnifying icon there. I want to record some more geology interps, and so I click on that, and then I can create or analyze or view that particular one. And there's a little eye symbol there that turns the layers off and on. Okay, these are the base layers. So these are Google Earth ones, Google Maps. So you can select which one you want. Obviously, you got to be online for that. There are a few little tricks you can have to get those in there. And then down the bottom here of the layer control, you've got all your tools there. So it's sort of a swipe gesture left and right. So you may see a few tools there. The one that's currently getting presented here is the style. So you can change the point styles or whatever. There's also themes. So different styles and thematics. So you might want to show value ranges of it might be geochem samples, something like that. So they can either come from the desktop or you can create them in here. So in this instance, you've clicked on the add theme. You can add some more ones in there if you like. So there's all the different symbols. So it's pre-canned with a whole bunch of symbology. So you can see down the bottom there, you click on the little symbol to the right there, and then down the bottom here, you can select from a variety of symbols. Okay, so what's showing now is there's a little, if you wanted to see any of the textural attributes to the objects, so there's a little T icon there, you click on that, and then you just go ahead and tap on the different objects. So I've tapped on that road there, and as you can see here, that I've tapped on that Vic road, so that's the layer that an action's going to be applied to. So that can work for anything with attributes. So this one here, it's an object info tool. So point, line, and polygon, you can analyze. Points, it'll do X and Y. Lines will do lengths. And if you tap on a polygon, you get the area and the perimeter. So you may have just gone and digitized something, or you may have data that's there and you want to see what's the area of this thing, or what's the perimeter that I might have to walk around. So it's that little object info one. Okay, so in this instance now, on the layer controller, I've clicked on, there's a thing that looks like a squiggle. So I'm manually digitizing in a polygon with my finger. You can do it via GPS, or you can do it manually with the crosshairs. So it's quite flexible. So you can see that little thing that looks like a squiggly bent over Christmas tree there. That's a finger squiggle. And in there, you can put whatever, any field you want, and you can have drop downs. You know, things like that. So you can have in that layer control, or sorry, in the legend editor, you can have all the different attributes and drop down lists that you can put into there, or you can just manually type stuff in. Really depends how valid you want your data to be. Okay, so we'll just demonstrate a couple more things here. So we're manually adding in points for geology here. So you can see it does it at the crosshair. So I move the map window and I click add node. And then you've got options here that you can manually enter it. You can enter a point at your current GPS. So this is a node at your current GPS, or you've also got an option there for distance and bearing. So that might be, especially for lines, you might say, I'm at this point, I can't go to that other point, but I know where it is or how far it is. Might have a laser pointer, might have a tape measure. And so you can do a line or a in between two nodes on a geology polygon. You can do it via distance and bearing. And you can also see there's a little interactive area and perimeter just to the left there as you digitize, and so you can see in real time how big that polygon is. Okay, so this is a relatively new feature. It's called multi-capture. So it was that button to the furthest to the right there. And what you can do is you can, in the past, you could only capture one layer at a time, but with this one, you can capture multiple layers at a time. So you might want to be digitizing your geology polygon, and then you go, hang on, I want to get some grab samples. So you can pause that, go over, get your grab samples, then continue on with your geological interp. So that's that multi-capture one. So that's down the bottom bar there. This, like I said, this is in iOS. So it's, yeah, there we go. So if I click on that layer, you see the pause and the stop button. The stop's essentially to capture that object. And you can have as many of these as you want going along. Okay, so that's just a brief introduction to the mobile interface. Now, yeah, as part of the presentation, we're going to get into structures. So how do we do that? In the legend editor, like I said, that sets everything up. So firstly, you need to have a structural list. We do have ones in there by default. So it's for Canada, Australia, and the USA there. And yeah, like I said, ArcGIS has the legend editor, Map Info has the pick lists. So this is where you do all that. Yeah, so you can come in here, you can change the values. These are just default ones that we've put in there, but if you call bedding beds or whatever your naming convention is, you can change all that. And also, when setting up a structure layer, if you want to capture structures out in the field in Discover Mobile, in the table validation, which is exactly the same in both platforms, these are the primary things that you need to set up. So you don't have to have an X, Y, and Z, but it's always good. So you can capture that off the GPS X, Y, and Z. We've got dip direction, and you also need this thing called a Discover code. It's like a unique identifier. But you might say, okay, dip and dip direction, but I capture in right-hand rule. We do also cater for that. So you instead of a dip direction, you do a strike and dip. And then you just need your lookup table. So this is what you need to do if you want to capture structures and take advantage of all the facilities in Discover Mobile. You need to set up a structure table. And you can have more than one structure table. Okay, so once you've set up that structure table, this is what you've got in Discover Mobile. So over to the right here, you can see we've got a stereo net, so you can do all your analysis in there of the stereo net. You have a structure compass down to the bottom right there, so you can set your device or your phone on a structure plane or a lineation, and you can see the or capture the real-time dip directions and dips and plunges and all that sort of thing. And a relatively new addition on the stereo net are contours, which make it a little bit more obvious of the structural trends. So you can see here we've got the standard ones, which most have, are the CAM and the 1% area. Okay, so this is a little video of the structures. So I'll just turn the sound off there and just talk through it. So I've got my structure points. You see here, you've got that, I'll just go back a little bit there. So you can see there's a little toggle in the style. So on that style button, you come there and you toggle structure symbols. And if you've got your table set up, you'll see all your structures all correctly orientated and with all the correct symbology. So rather than just having a point there, it's a lot more obvious for the structural geologist or the geologist to interpret all the trends out in the field. Okay, so in this instance, once you've captured you've captured a structure, this is how the little structural tool looks. So there's this thing called the structural tool. You click on that. You can either manually enter these. So we're not saying you can't use your Brunton compass or anything like that. But if you want to, you can use the structural compass in Discover Mobile. And there's just some validation there saying you must enter these values. Okay, so you can take photos. This is all set up in the table validator. This is just one outside in the office. So you take a photo, and now I want to, might be of your structures, and then I go ahead, click on that little structure tool, get my device, mobile phone, whatever, lay it on the bedding plane, and then I can capture the dip and the dip direction. Main thing with this is if you do have a phone and it's in a case and that case is magnetic, it can affect. It'll be the same if you're just using the compass, just some standalone app with a compass on it, and you've got a magnet in your case. Just a caveat to be aware of. So yeah, so you can go ahead, capture all your structures. There we go. So you can see it all moving around, all interactive. So you can go ahead and change those if you want. It just automatically captures it for you. That's the great thing about it. But if you want to change it, you can. You might want to qualify it with your Brunton. And then you just need to select the type of bedding so you can see the symbology there. You can search for it. There's a little search facility there. And that's pretty much, yeah, capturing the structures. But the main thing is you need to have the table set up to be a structural table. Otherwise, you can't do any of this. It'll just be a standard point table. All right, so what we've done is we've clicked, there's a little thing that looks like a world up the top there. That's the stereo net. So you can go ahead and filter out all the different types of structures there. Go into the settings here. You've got all your different projection types. There's the contours. All the standard things you'd expect off a stereo net. As you're sort of filtering them out, the contours change dynamically. So yeah, it's a great little addition to the structural toolkit in Discover Mobile. Okay, that's pretty much it for the structures there. Now onto the outcrop mapper. So this has been in probably about, I don't know, 6 to 9 months or so. You may or may not have played with this. But essentially, we call it outcrop mapper, but you're taking images, like you take a photo, and it might be of outcrops, might be a point of interest, pit faces, or any type of planar or draped surface that you want to display. And what's great about this, you can take photos just on Discover Mobile ordinarily, but they'll just be flat and they won't, not, let's just say, geo-registered. These things will, when it goes into, say, an arc scene or Discover 3D or something, they'll be in the correct space at the correct height and all scaled, and you can digitize on top of them. So yeah, so it's scaled, geolocated, can be planar, so just like a flat image, or draped over topography. And yeah, you might want to interpret things like, you know, structures, faults, geological contacts, whatever you want. Okay, so Outcrop Mapper, that's on that mobile tool or tab. And so then what you can do is, firstly, you need to create like an outcrop project. So that contains all the outcrop images and all the interpretations. And then if you want to do any interpretations, you've got this thing called outcrop templates. The same terminology goes across the two different GIS platforms. So you need to create, or must create, outcrop templates. They're just basically layers, that's all. So they're feature layers or, you know, object layers. And you can apply all the same validations as you do in Discover Mobile on the outcrop. Okay, so how do we add an outcrop layer to, you have to firstly have an existing mobile project. And then what you do is you'll see there's a little outcrop tab when you go to modify or create a project. And then you can select the layers or those templates from the outcrop. Okay, so once you've got a outcrop project associated with a mobile project, you get an extra layer called outcrop location. That's where you capture a point and then it goes into the whole sort of outcrop tool, which there's a quick little video on that. Okay, so I'll just run you through this. So I've clicked on create a GPS point. I've taken a photo. I'll just pause this, but so we've got here, when you take a photo, you need to scale it because this is going to be geolocated and referenced and scaled. And you can do it either via an object, so you might have a GPIC or something, or you might have a laser pointer or a measuring tape, whatever. So you select which method. In this case, we're using just like a line. So we just say that's, you know, might be 1 meter or something like that. Okay. So essentially what's happened there, just a few little sort of options. Now that's all geo-referenced. And if I just step back a bit, there's all our layers that are in, or what we call templates. So they're the layers that we're going to digitize on. And the next part of the video just shows you digitizing. They might be digitising contacts there. Oop. Let's go back there. So we digitise a contact. We select the drop down there. So there's all your different types of geology. We'll just digitise a couple more. Select your drop downs. And then we're doing a polygon here, the perimeter of the outcrop. Okay, so yeah, that's the outcrop mapper. Very similar interface to the normal Discover Mobile, but the main thing is you've got to set up an outcrop project and associate with it. So where this is good is then we can bring this back into, say, an ArcGIS Pro scene, or it might be a Map Info Discover 3D view. And I'll just quickly show you this video. So it all integrates seamlessly with ArcGIS. Just showing you the dimensions of the area. So you may have walked down this valley or something like that, and you want to take an image or something like that and do some digitising. So in this case, we've walked along this track here. We've taken a photo of the outcrop, but like I said, it doesn't always have to be an outcrop, it can be whatever you want. If you might want to take pictures of the side of a building and, you know, digitize stuff off that. So it's just any planar feature. It's up to your imagination what you use it for. So in this instance, we've taken a photo. You can see that's draped perfectly over the topography, and it's pretty good resolution there. So just zooming in and out. And also what we've done is in this instance, just go back there. Those green points are basically, you can get little like magnifiers on the on your phone, and it's taking pictures of like the grains. So you can hyperlink those images in the scene there. All right, so yeah, that's the outcrop mapper. Okay. Another couple of things that you can use out in the field with Discover Mobile is geofencing. So this is great. It's basically a virtual perimeter, and you set up a polygon, might be a tenement boundary, might be cadastre boundaries, whatever it is, or an area that you want to be contained within. And it alerts you when you go in and out of that area. So in this instance, this is a do not enter piece of functionality. You can set that up in the settings. So when I go into an area, it's got all the, you know, lights and bells and whistles and all that sort of thing that flashes and alerts you when you've gone in there. And this is passively in the background going on. You can have multiple polygons that you may or may not want to go into. So as you can see here, that's the current location. As I enter the bounds of that polygon, an exclusion zone, there'll be a noise, there'll be messaging, there's warnings, and that persists until I get out of there. But we also do have the facility that when you are in a polygon and you get out of it, the same thing happens. Okay, so that's geofencing. And what would you use geofencing for? Well, it's up to you. You know, you get applications like you might want to not make financial mistakes going into Crown land, or there might be some boundary that you're not meant to go over. It can enhance your workflow, so you want to have all your geologists contained in this one area, and when they accidentally hop out, it tells you to get back in there. Yeah, so like you have warnings that tells you if you're entering environmentally sensitive or culturally significant areas. And yeah, so that's another one is like defined areas to go that you want to work in, and you get warnings as well. All right, another thing we've got, which assists the user out in the field, is the themes. Like I said, I'll just play this video as we're going along. And you can create your own themes, or they can be constructed in the Legend Editor or Pick List Manager or anything like that on the desktop. And in this instance, yeah, you can go ahead and just manually add one if there isn't one already in there. And this might be for gold. So you've got, yeah, numeric range, or just basically text values. In this instance, we're doing from and to values. Just set up those ranges, set up the colors. You can have as many as you want. And then what happens is those points in that layer will be that color based on the field that you select. So like I said, this can all be set up on the desktop if you want, or you can do it out in the field. Okay, so that shows you there that they're the colors and the ranges. You can select the field, so it might be off the AU field or whatever it is. So we're going using that little scroll wheel there, and yeah, pretty much away you go. And you got your themes. Probably the final thing to show is this track pathing. We've had quite a few requests over the years for this, and what it does, it shows you every project has this default tracks layer, and as you're walking along, it documents your path. So you may go into an area and you've forgotten how to get back out, or it's not that obvious. It might just be flat sort of salt bush area and everything looks the same. And you can use that path, or you might want to have it as a track record of where your field crews have gone throughout the day. If they're just sitting under a bush all day, you know, they haven't done any work. So yeah, you can see whether or not, you know, what track they've followed. So that's, yeah, that's the tracks layer, and you can, it's those little 2 feet up the top there. And also just some final geological tools, which are great out in the field. I'll just talk you through this little video, but we've got a compass. So you may want to use your Brunton, you may want to use this, totally up to you. This is the iOS Apple version, so you can minimize it, so it's quite compact there. So that can just be sitting down the corner there, and you can see where you're walking around. That's a great little thing for navigating out in the field. We've got a structural compass, so just if you want to take measurements, it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to a layer type. You can just use it as a structural compass. We've got the 2 different types, dip and dip direction, right-hand rule, and you can also do plane or lineation. So you can see there, you can do your plunges and all that sort of thing. There's a ruler tool, so if you want to do measurements out in the field, so you can move this little sort of interface around. Tells you your bearing you're going on, last segment length, current segment length, and the total distance. And finally, there's a waypoint navigator. So instead of using your Garmin GPS or something like that, select a point, works off your current location. As you start walking, you can see the distance, how long it's going to take to get there, and the speed you're traveling at. You might ask, does it do it along sort of roads and stuff? No, it's really just from point to point. So it's not as sophisticated as a sort of an inbuilt navigating GPS like on on your phone, but it's really a point to point waypoint navigator, as you'd use your you know, your Garmin GPS anyway. So also, like I said before, enhancing. We haven't got too much longer, guys. If you're busy, GPS. So you can hook in external GPSs on Apple. These are the 2 types: the Bad Elf and the EOS Arrow. Android supports pretty much anything that connects up to it, but Apple's a little bit more restrictive, and that's what you can use to enhance your GPS positioning. And something that we've sort of recently introduced is, we've had people ask, can we capture in anything besides lat long WGS 84, which has sort of always been in the past. And we've just introduced the sort of projection awareness. So you can select or display GPS or your coordinates in a certain projection. So it might be MGA zone 54 or something. That's what we could do. Now we've also introduced in the table validators a thing called projected X and projected Y. So you can, in a field, capture in that coordinate. So the X and Y will be in like the easting and northing value. So it's in that transformed coordinate. That's a handy new addition. I won't bother going over all the features, but yeah, this is like it's on the app download page anyway. It goes through every single feature that's available in there. There's quite a lot, and it's fairly extensive. So just sort of showing you some of the things that you can do. One thing I didn't mention was there is the ability to capture sort of non-spatial data or sort of attribute type data. So not everything has to be spatialized. So you might have like some sort of Excel type sheet or a database sort of table, and you want to enter data in for that. So you can also do that. And finally, just one thing that we've added recently into ArcGIS Pro, and it's the ability to download Scaniverse. I don't know if anyone's sort of used that before, but it's I'll just quickly play this video and it shows you what it is. So you can capture, that's an outcrop there, and it captures it as like a textured sort of OBJ. We can bring those into ArcGIS Pro, and it could also be brought into Discover 3D. So on the mobile tab, you can bring those in, and this is what they look like. You can see it looks pretty good. And why I'm sort of mentioning that is we are currently developing only on the Apple device LiDAR capture and texturing like this. So that's another thing that we will have coming. So this is pretty much the final slide, everyone. But these are sort of things coming for future versions of Discover Mobile. We've got large base map handling. So it makes it more efficient for rendering on the mobile device. Separate image and vector layers. So it once again makes a lot quicker for syncing projects. Acquire and fusion geological database integration. We've also got, as I just mentioned, LiDAR sensor and 3D rendered imagery, sort of the same as that Scaniverse. That's going to be something native rather than having to get a third-party app to do it. Also, the integration of Esri mobile SDK. So at the moment we're using Google, but we're looking into getting the Esri SDK components, and also XRF data capture. Okay, I've run over a little bit of time there, so if you stuck around, but thanks for listening.